There is a region in Europe where the road signs have been rewritten at least 4 times in the last 150 years, where grandfathers fought for France and their grandsons were forced to fight for Germany, in the very same uniformless villages, on the very same streets. This is a piece of land so contested that entire wars were fought almost entirely because of it. 2 of the most powerful nations in modern history clashed over it again and again, and the scars of that struggle still shape Europe today. This is the story of Alsace-Lorraine, the borderland that refused to belong to anyone for long. Alsace-Lorraine sits in northeastern France, right along the Rhine River, bordering Germany and Switzerland. On paper, it looks like a small, quiet region of vineyards, forests, and half-timbered towns. But underneath that calm surface lies one of the most fought-over pieces of territory in European history. For roughly 300 years, France and various German powers, from the Holy Roman Empire to the German Empire to Nazi Germany, pulled this land back and forth like a rope in a tug of war. Each time it changed hands, its people were told to change their language, their loyalty, and sometimes even their names. Understanding Alsace-Lorraine means understanding why borders in Europe were never just lines on a map. They were promises, wounds, and weapons, all at once. The story begins long before modern France or Germany existed as unified nations. In the 1600s, the region that would become Alsace was part of a patchwork of small German-speaking territories loosely connected to the Holy Roman Empire. Then came the 30 Years' War, one of the most devastating conflicts in European history. France, seeking to weaken its Habsburg rivals, intervened, and by the time the war ended, in 1648, France had gained significant control over Alsace through the Peace of Westphalia. Lorraine followed later, absorbed gradually into the French kingdom over the following century. For more than 100 years after that, Alsace-Lorraine was French. Its people spoke a mix of French and a German dialect, lived under French law, and considered themselves part of the French nation, even while keeping their own distinct regional culture. This is the detail most people miss. By the time the next great clash arrived, this land had already been French for generations. It wasn't a fresh conquest waiting to happen. It was a settled, integrated part of France. Then in 1870, everything changed in less than a year. Tensions between France and a rapidly rising, newly unifying Germany exploded into the Franco-Prussian War. France expected a quick, confident victory. Instead, it suffered a catastrophic and humiliating defeat. Prussian-led German forces crushed the French army, captured the French emperor himself, and marched toward Paris. When the war ended in 1871, the newly formed German Empire demanded something specific as the price of peace: Alsace and part of Lorraine. France was forced to hand over the region. Overnight, more than 1.5 million people who had considered themselves French for generations woke up as citizens of the new German Empire. Many Alsatians and Lorrainers were furious. Thousands chose to leave rather than live under German rule, moving into France proper rather than accept the new border. The land became a German territory called Alsace-Lothringen, administered directly from Berlin, and German authorities pushed policies to reinforce German language and culture in schools and public life. But resentment simmered under the surface. Many locals still felt culturally tied to France, and the loss of Alsace-Lorraine became a national wound for the French. Maps in French classrooms for decades showed the region in mourning black, a constant visual reminder of what had been taken. That wound didn't heal. It festered, and it became one of the emotional fuels behind the next great catastrophe in European history. Here's the part that surprises most people. Alsace-Lorraine wasn't just a minor issue in the lead-up to World War I. It was one of France's core motivations for wanting to fight Germany at all. Reclaiming the lost region was a matter of deep national pride, discussed in French politics for over 4 decades. When World War I finally broke out in 1914, French forces launched some of their earliest offensives directly into Alsace-Lorraine, determined to take back what they saw as rightfully theirs. The fighting was brutal, and the front lines barely moved for years. But when Germany was finally defeated in 1918, the outcome flipped completely. Under the Treaty of Versailles, Alsace-Lorraine was returned to France, without even holding a public vote, because French negotiators argued the annexation of 1871 had been illegitimate to begin with. For the people living there, this meant switching back to French rule for the second time in 50 years. Street signs were changed again. School language policies flipped again. An entire generation had now lived through two total changes of national identity. If the story had ended there, Alsace-Lorraine might be remembered as a closed chapter. But history had one more brutal twist in store. In 1940, Nazi Germany invaded and defeated France in a matter of weeks. Alsace-Lorraine was annexed once again, this time not just administratively, but violently. Nazi authorities banned the French language, forced Germanization policies onto the population, and most disturbingly, conscripted tens of thousands of young Alsatian and Lorrainer men directly into the German army, sending many of them to fight and often die on the brutal Eastern Front against the Soviet Union. These conscripts became known by a haunting nickname, the Malgré-nous, meaning against our will. They didn't choose Germany, Germany chose them. When Nazi Germany was defeated in 1945, Alsace-Lorraine returned to France for what would finally become the last time. But the physical and emotional cost of 300 years of contested identity could not simply be erased by a new treaty. Why does this matter today, decades after the fighting stopped? Because Alsace-Lorraine became one of the clearest lessons in European history about what nationalism and repeated border changes actually do to real people. Families in the region often have surnames that sound German, speak a regional dialect, blending both languages, and carry a complicated, layered identity that doesn't fit neatly into either French or German. Older generations in some villages still remember relatives who fought on opposing sides of the same wars simply because of which government controlled their birth certificate that decade. This painful history is also part of why Alsace-Lorraine's main city, Strasbourg, holds such symbolic importance in Europe today. After World War II, European leaders were desperate to prevent France and Germany from ever going to war again. Strasbourg, sitting almost exactly on the historic fault line between the two nations, was chosen as a home for major European institutions, including the European Parliament. A city that had been fought over as a prize of war became quite deliberately a symbol of European unity instead. It's one of the most powerful examples in modern history of a contested border region being transformed into a bridge rather than a battlefield. The deeper lesson goes beyond Alsace-Lorraine itself. This region shows how borderlands absorb the cost of great power conflicts, how ordinary people can be forced to switch nationalities, languages, and even armies without ever leaving their hometown. It's a pattern that has repeated in contested regions across the world, and Alsace-Lorraine remains one of the clearest, best documented examples of exactly how that process unfolds over generations. 4 times in less than 100 years, the people of Alsace-Lorraine were told which nation they belonged to. 4 times their language, their schools, and sometimes their sons were claimed by whichever empire held the stronger army that decade. Today, the vineyards are quiet, the border is open, and the old rivalry between France and Germany has become one of the closest partnerships in Europe. But the story of Alsace-Lorraine is a reminder that peace is not simply the absence of war. It's what's built, deliberately and carefully, after land like this finally stops being fought over.